Kathy Johnson. Welcome to Town Talk. I'm here today with Margaret Beeman, professional horsewoman and author of The Better Deal and Training for Safety. I'm going to tell you that the show is on weekly now. You can catch it on public access TV in the Valley Towns, Channel 10. You can also view the show on Facebook and on YouTube. Margaret, welcome. Take the reins. The show is yours.
Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.
I'm very happy to be back, and I want to welcome back Lois. And we have a new guest. We have Sally, who's a reporter for Connecticut Horse Magazine. And my special guest today, my eldest student, has been with me for a very long time with a very interesting story, Eileen. So today's show is going to be about, we're going to talk a little bit more about herd rules and mounting safely is going to be our topic today. We've been through the whole outline in all the shows, and so we've gone through all the material. Now we're just going to go back and do it again, which when you work with horses, you realize you repeat yourself an awful lot. You know, and mostly the same things apply to every situation. I'd like to start out, if we could show the slides of Eileen. We'll start out with what Eileen's story is with her little fell pony, Laddie. So Eileen came to me about 10 years ago, and with a pony that she was told she should probably put down because he was going to hurt her. So if we could put the slides up of Eileen, there she is in the indoor. These are at the workshops. And it took us 3 weeks or so before we rode him, I think. We started outside, and there she is doing some groundwork with him, which is where everybody starts on the ground. And Laddie had some pretty strong opinions about people when he first came. Mm-hmm. And here she is trying to get him to move that hind quarter away and get it going forward.
Now, for anybody that doesn't know, the fell ponies are the ones that you'll frequently see Queen Elizabeth riding.
That's right.
That's why they may look familiar.
Yeah, and they live in a very austere region up in the hills of northern England.
Scotland, right?
Mostly England, yeah, okay. the fell region. And they're tough. They were originally designed for the coal mines, and then what happened was that they became for the portly, elderly gentleman. Oh. And then, of course, the Queen.
There you go.
And me.
There you are.
Yeah.
That's great, Eileen, to see you with your pony there.
Thank you.
Very nice.
He's
and,
beautiful.
You know, he's only 14.1, but he's as comfortable and as wide as any 16.2 horse that I've ever ridden. You know, in terms of placement of the leg and everything else. I mean, he's amazing how much
a
he
draft?
takes up. Well, as I said, they were originally used for the coal mines, and then, you know, built to be small enough to go into the tunnels and everything, and then, you know, bring out the coal and all that. And they are really tough. You know, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So where should we start?
When you first brought him to me.
Okay. Well, actually, it starts a little bit before that. On the first day of my retirement from teaching high school down in White Plains for 25 years, a friend of mine called up and said, you know, I have this horse. I think it would be very suitable for you. The owner wants to sell him for $4,000, and unfortunately, she's had a lot of problems, and she's been institutionalized. And she still wants to sell him. This is the person. And she had just turned out Laddie with a little mini pony. And so my friend says, I can bring him over tomorrow. And I said, okay, I'm off from school. I'll take him. So I bring him into the backyard, and for about 4 months, I could hardly get near him. I mean, I would sit and read a book until finally he'd come over and kind of look, and then he'd run off.
Right.
Okay. And then I brought him, it got to be winter, and I said, I don't know if I can deal with him. I brought him to a local stable. And he was there for a little while, and then one day I'm reading Rural Heritage magazine. And there's this article in there about driving horses, and I really wanted to drive him. My original Lippet pony, Mr. Buttons, was a 40-year-old Lippet pony, looked just like him, maybe even shorter legs. And I had a one-horse open sleigh and a stone boat, and all those wonderful things for taking care of the farm where I worked down at the Rockefellers. And I said, oh, this guy looks just like Mr. Buttons. So I took him. However, reading Rural Heritage, I got down to the bottom. It says Margaret Beeman, Broken Wheel Ranch. I said, yeah, right, that's going to be out in Arizona somewhere.
Yes.
So this is not going to work, And then I looked further, and it said Millerton. Oh my goodness, that's right up the road from me. I called her, and the next day we loaded him on the trailer and brought him up.
Did he load on the trailer?
Yes and no. It takes a while, and it took a great deal of attention to him to get him on the trailer, but eventually he did load. Now, the stories that I heard, he has been in more states than I have ever been in. He has had more trainers. He started out in Texas. His real name is Midnight Valley's Wild Carrot. And I think,
that's a mouthful.
Did eventually
aptly named.
Aptly named. His brother is Timothy, and who is a sweetheart, but Wild Carrot was definitely wild. And everybody who got him had him send him to a trainer, and the trainers would say, put him down. He's dangerous. He'll kill your kid. He is not a child's pony.
Well, when he first came, he was quite a handful, and he had quite a few questions about people in general. And we started Laddie, actually. We did some groundwork with him, but we actually did a lot of work in the round pen with him so he could feel free that he could get away if he wanted to. And it was during that time that we discovered, I was ready to mount him. I worked him in the round pen, was ready to mount him, and I put a bridle on him, and he changed. And I said, so we took the bridle off and looked in his mouth and found that he had injuries on his tongue.
Oh,
so
missing half of his tongue.
and I'm
Missing
not a big advocate of bitless bridles. And Eileen said, I don't like bitless bridles. You either have a snaffle bit or you have a side pull or hackamore stuff. Well, she wanted to use a bitless bridle on him, and of course, it was obvious. His whole expression changed as soon as I put that bit in his mouth. His head came up and he started to brace, and both of us said there's something that changed dramatically. Let's check this out a little further. I'm glad we did.
Yes, and we did use the hackamore at first because bitless bridles were just not the thing back then.
But what did you have to check a little further?
Pardon? You mean going into his mouth?
The bridle, you had to check something a little further?
I had to check we wanted to stop, take the bridle off, and check his mouth and check and see. Lots of times it's like it happened to be his tongue. Sometimes it's a bad tooth.
Oh, yeah. That's what I thought you were going to say.
But he had I asked Eileen, she said, yeah, we just had his teeth done. He should be fine. So I reached in his mouth and grabbed hold of his tongue, and it felt funny. And I looked and I said, yeah, there's something seriously going on here. Something had happened to him, so he's not going to have to work through something like that. And I'm sorry, but I had an older lady and an older horse, and they wanted to ride. So it's like we've got to figure out how to put this together. So we did the bitless bridle, and then what the show is about today, and what we worked on a lot, because Eileen has had several knee surgeries and ankle surgeries and balance problems, and he needed to stand still at the mounting block for her when there was nobody around.
Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting. People think a hackamore, how much pressure is that? The amount of pressure that I have to use on him for anything is probably that.
Yeah.
And he knows right away. Okay, something's up. Right away, immediately. It is incredible how sensitive he is to any kind of pressure. And they just had a big article from one of the horse things about how snaffle bridles can injure horses' tongues as well. Now, we think he came back from a trainer on his journey around the country. And as I said, he'd been in California a couple of times. He's born in Texas, been in California, been in Ohio, was in New York once, went to Virginia. I mean, I got all this information because at the time that we got him, there were 250 fell ponies in the United States.
That's all?
Wow.
So I could, now there are about 600, but, you know, I could go back to almost every place where he had been and ask them about, well, what happened here? What happened here? And one of them did say that when he went to one trainer, he came back, and that was when he became untouchable. I mean, really untouchable. And he had been advised to put him down because he was just terrible. And of course, everybody sent him to trainers because they wanted their child to have him.
Yeah.
You know, and he is never, ever going to be a child's pony.
No.
Do you know what happened to his tongue? Was he punished?
Nobody
Was he
ever
abused?
said, but they think what happened. There are two theories. He is rather inquisitive.
So he could have done it
He
himself.
could have done it himself because he still is like, oh,
Yeah, he
there's
is.
something in there. Okay, let me check that out.
Mr. Personality.
Yeah, and the other thing was, and I think this is what did happen, he had been sent to a Western trainer who believed in the wire tie-down thing. We're going to teach this horse how to stand still. So they wrap a wire around the jaw and the tongue and then tie them. Well, he is not going to stand for that. Okay? He's not going to, he just wouldn't. So I have the feeling that that was more of the situation that happened. And Margaret and I worked with him for a long time, you know, actually tying him to the side of the barn with the halter on so that he could just get used to, oh my God, I'm tied up. What do I do now?
Wow.
What do I do now?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you could just see the tremors in
We
his
put him
body.
we put him in a 90-day program, and at the end of that 90 days, Eileen rode him. And she wanted to drive him pony, and we continued on. She does long line him now.
So
We've
now,
got him in the first time we put long lines on him, he had a meltdown.
Yeah.
And also, there's something, not his mouth, only his mouth, but his legs. I tried to take him out on a trail ride one day, and we went through the field where the grass was mowed, and we got into where the goldenrods and such were. And as soon as stuff started on his legs, he did not want his feet on the ground. So I had to honestly say to Eileen, I don't think you'd make a trail pony if you're going to go through, you know, tall grass and stuff like that.
And Margaret, it brings to mind something you've said in the past, and correct me if I misquote you, that what you do is very different from a trainer. You don't say you're a trainer.
Right.
And this is what you get. This is an example, I think, is what you get when you send a horse to a trainer. And I think our studio audience will be interested in knowing, with this particular horse, how your method of authentic horsemanship and true horsemanship helped this horse.
Right.
That just triggered me there.
Well, Margaret said to me the very first day, we're going to pretend that he's a foal.
Yeah,
This is the very first time that he's had any contact with human beings.
right.
And we're going to treat him that way until he begins to say, oh, you know, they're okay, they're not so bad.
I say that to all new people I work with because, and I say, you know, it's very hard, especially Eileen's a lifelong horsewoman, you're a lifelong horsewoman, and, you know, you have ways of doing things. You know, authentic horsemanship is not a training technique. And that's usually you have horses, you take it to a trainer. If you want to do something with your animal, you train it to do that. You know, people spend money to have their horses trained to do specific things in specific events, and the authentic horsemanship is not a training technique. What it is the study of the horse and what the horse is and what it can and can't do, so that when you decide to train it or do something with it, you can work with it in a kind and humane way and bring it through so that it understands. This horse had no trust of people whatsoever. Now he's a puppy dog.
Really?
Now, well, you see, I have 2 fake knees. I have problems with my feet. I have a broken tendon in my hand. Now, when I go up the hill with him after getting him in the field, and I have my cane, and I walk up the hill, and I go 2 steps, he stops, he goes, you okay?
Oh, isn't that
You
a
okay? I said, okay, we can go on. Okay. You okay? And seriously.
But it's about partnering with your horse and not trying and trust.
Right.
not dominating, controlling, and
Now, the
punishing.
young girl comes over to take him up the hill, and he's like, "Oh, okay, honey, let's go." And he trots up the hill next to her, and he's like,
But
"Oh,
they're
yeah."
each different people.
But it's and what amazes me most, and dogs have this too, but I think horses have this in a different way. They have an empathetic kind of feeling. And it's not, oh, he's so cute, and he loves me and all that. It's very different. It is definitely, they're with a herd.
Right.
They know when the other herd member is being sassy or when the other herd member just, leave me alone. They understand this with the other
Well, they're governed, the horses are governed by instinct. We're governed by emotion. And that's the main reason, and also horses live, I say this over and over and over again, horses live in the moment. We don't.
No, that's right.
This day and age, we don't live in the moment. We're multitasking all the time. We're going fast. Maybe my age, but you try to carry on a conversation with people and they start talking like this and they're going very fast and that, and by the way, this and you've lost your horse. If you're going to be around horses, you have to slow down. And one place that's very dangerous, and I have to say, every person that came to me riding, I've given a mounting block lesson to.
Yeah.
And it's not only doing the groundwork with the horse so the horse understands he needs to look to you for direction and wait for you so that he will wait. It's also getting the person to mount correctly. And any authentic horseman that you go to, or if you go to any of these 4-day clinics with the cowboys, as a lot of people call them, I call them the masters, you won't see mounting blocks. You mount from the ground.
That's right. Yeah.
Or you'll mount off a fence with your elbow hooked over the end of the fence, so that if something does happen, you simply take your foot and you're back and you're safe. Mounting blocks are very dangerous things. And a person holding a horse is not going to help you with the mounting block if something happens. And Lois has got a story about a mounting block incident with not just one horse.
Yeah, I was in a big arena. I happened to be riding one of my horses on a side saddle. The woman that owned the barn was teaching a little kid on a pony, and another woman came in with her horse and went up to the mounting block and put the horse in between the mounting block and the side of the wall. She started to get on, and this was an experienced rider. She wasn't just a newbie. She landed just behind the saddle. The horse catapulted her 10 feet up in the air.
Oh my gosh.
She hit the side wall. It was like a cartoon. She hit the side wall. She shimmied down the side wall, landed on the ridge, and then she went down onto the ground. In the meantime, her horse bolted and started racing around. My horse was on one end, and I'm in the side saddle, started bucking the entire way down the arena. And the little kid on the pony started screaming bloody murder and doing laps around.
Oh my God,
We
this is
call
a
this
chain
we
reaction.
call this gasoline on the fire. We call it
Three
gasoline
horses
on the fire.
of mayhem. It's when I happened to learn it's impossible to fall out of a side saddle. I mean, because I'd come off, after 2 bucks, I'm history. But you can stay with the buck and a side saddle
because you've got
the
that
whole
hook
way,
because
which
of
is kind of an interesting stuff. But all
The
she did
mechanics of
was
the
land
saddle.
right behind this on the butt, and he just bucked her right up like high, and she just went down the wall and into the ground, and the horse was history. Gone.
A young woman at my barn, the barn that she came from, she went to mount her horse, and there was a woman maybe 10 or 12 feet away that reached down and picked up a lunge whip just as she crested.
Just coincidentally.
And
that was it.
off the horse goes. You have any mounting stories?
Well, I've been very lucky with the horses that so far I haven't had. My incidents are usually in the saddle or during a ride.
Right.
But mostly I find that being conscientious about making sure that you're safe, the horse is ready for you, and you've taken the time to be aware of what's going around. That
Right.
helps.
And many barns I see, they walk up to the mounting block with their horse and get a foot in the stirrup, and when they're about halfway over, the horse walks off, and they stretch and they do this while the horse is walking. And I don't allow that in my barn.
Right.
I don't allow it because, number one, all of us are getting older and we can't balance as the horse walks off. When I was young, I did the hippodrome stand in the rodeo. I could do all that stuff. But it doesn't have to do with the horsemanship, it doesn't have to do with how physically fit you are as a rider. It has to do with keeping your horse in the moment to keep him safe. And it's for Eileen, it takes a lot longer for Eileen to mount, and the pony has to, even if she slips and has to catch her balance on him, she wants that horse with her to help her.
It's the first place where rubber actually hits the road on being able to ride to the feet. Because traditionally I was learned it was mostly about in the mouth. Everything you did was in the mouth.
Contact,
pressure, more contact, harder bit. But this is where you have to understand they don't move from their mouth. They move from their feet.
Yes.
Right.
And it's where people can go colossally wrong. But it is where, that's where they move. They move from the feet. They don't move from the mouth.
Right.
No.
And
So pay attention to the feet. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Margaret, you said something that stood with me in your last workshop that I attended. To get the leather sole shoes and not the rubber.
Right.
I bought my first pair after all these years, and mine have rubber soles, and I understand now it's easier to get your foot out of that stirrup with the leather. Also, too, if it wasn't for the fact that I'm the age I am, I would love to mount from the ground, which is probably the most. I don't like a mounting block myself, but right now at this point in my life, that's about the only way I'm going to get on the horse at this point, unless I get a little more strength in my arms and all.
Shorter pony.
Yeah. Well, I want. I think. Actually,
helps.
I think I want one of Eileen's. I just fell in love with it, you know.
Yeah.
But the mounting is probably a very. I guess it's always been one of the more dangerous things.
Absolutely.
Can I ask you a quick question? I'm just curious. Do you feel a lot of people say that mounting block is good? It's better on the horse's back.
Yes. Yeah, I've heard
and
that.
We'll talk a little bit about that when we move forward.
Okay.
I'll say something on it now. When I say that it's very important that you know how to mount. Okay, a lot of people will use the mounting block because if they try to mount from the ground, if they are able to get their foot up high enough, they pull on the saddle to get themselves up.
That's what we do.
And what that does is it torques
the horse
in the sternum. And you know, how many of you have had chiropractors come and adjust your horse's sternum? And it's from people putting their foot in the stirrup, stepping down, grabbing the horn, and pulling themselves up, which will rotate the saddle. So the reason why many people use the mounting blocks is to prevent that. But I've even seen people mount from the mounting blocks, and if you're standing in back of the horse, you'll see this.
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's a few tips that when we get to the video, I'll show you. If we could put the pics up of mounting, we have 4 shots of women in very precarious positions. I'm in 2 of them, and I think we have Kelly and Lois there mounting. Now you see, Kelly is up over top of her horse's center. That's where you're supposed to be. You're not supposed to be pulling the saddle down. And here's Lois, right here. If that horse spooked, where would Lois be? I mean, it shows you. You know, so a lot of people say, well, I'll get a higher mounting block. Well, that just means you're going to fall from a higher distance, actually, you know.
These are really attractive pictures.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I wanted to show is like you're in a very precarious position. That horse has to be with you.
Excellent
You see
timing
that
on the
horse's
camera,
ears
huh?
is back listening to me. And the hardest part, I put this one up because a lot of people say, well, you ride in those Western saddles and it's hard to get my leg over the cantle and there's too much leather and there's...
Take yoga.
Yeah, there's all kinds of tips to be getting up in the saddle. And also many women who get older, they have Western saddles now that not the nylon or anything like that, but well-made Western saddles that are lighter. They're about 30 pounds, and they're a lot easier to stay in. Lois chose, she had side saddles, she had English, she had everything she needed until she rode in my saddle and said, why do you use that saddle? And I said, well, it's the right tool for the job, because I was riding a lot of young horses or horses that needed straightening out. And not only that, it fits the horse, it fits you. It gives you stability. The fenders on the Western saddle.
Yeah, I mean, that was just for a minute on the Western. The size of the fender rather than the strap is what's helped me understand the feel of the horse.
Right.
Way more than an English saddle.
And I'm so happy to hear that.
Your heels aren't down. You're not putting pressure on the horse constantly with the heels down. And your leg, and I wear chaps all the time, so it's leather on leather, and my knee feels better because you're not, and I have good saddles, and you're not torquing your knee.
Is it a wider stirrup too?
It's a wide stirrup. It's a 4-inch. It's a McCall's. I have 3
less
of them.
stress on the knee
They're
too.
Great. The stress on the knee, but it's the length is more, I guess, like a dressage. But it's the fenders of being able to feel the horse.
Right.
And I think anybody that starts with horsemanship, especially if they're English, not if you're going to be jumping and maybe doing other stuff, but to start to get the mindset to succeed and to feel the horse. And as you feel down, you're starting to feel those feet again, which you move to the feet and you ride to the feet.
I see what you're saying. As a matter of fact, I came from a time, and probably Sally will know this, and Eileen too. Well, I'm not going to ride in a Western saddle.
It's bogan.
I mean, I'm above that. Well, I'm seriously considering, after hearing you gals talk,
it's really
I'm seriously
great.
considering trying the Western saddle. I think it's going to be good for me.
It will.
What I really
it's
like
right along
about
the leg.
what Lois said is what I get all the time from folks who ride English or dressage. You can't feel anything in that saddle. There's just so much leather and so much bulk and so much. One of the things I teach people when they ride, when you take riding lessons, you're taught position your shoulder, your hip, your heels. I don't do that because I don't want the rider to focus on themselves. I want the rider to focus on where they're going and feeling what the horse is going to do. So in these saddles, you have to balance on your seat bone. And I've done this with many riders. If you sit there and balance on your seat bone and you look ahead at where you want your horse's feet to go, then you put your feet in your stirrups and you start to put a little bit of leg on the horse. Where does all of your weight go? It comes up.
Yeah.
And you're perching. You're not
That's
sitting down
pivot,
in your
and that's
seat.
when you
and
fall.
You pivot
Right.
forward.
You
That's right.
And
catapult
because
off.
you don't have, I have a lot of people say, oh, well, you can't ride English if you ride Western because, you don't have enough balance. Because, you have those little leathers.
The straps.
You don't have the stability of the fender. So if you don't have the stability of the fender, what do? You get off your seat bone and you start using your legs to stay on your horse. And a horse naturally uses pressure and release as a language.
Right.
And if you're using your legs in a way to stay on, instead of a way to talk to your horse. And I think I told the story one of the first shows about the gal with the hunter jumper that came, and I started her with the horse. She was fine. Then she came back. She couldn't get her horse to go forward. And she put spurs on, and she said she's just, I don't know if she's sick or what's wrong with her. And what it was she had the typical hunter jumper seat, and she had leg on her horse, and it never went away.
That's right. And then, of course, I always rode in the short stirrups, like that.
Right.
I see, how did I ride with, I started to like the longer stirrup more, almost bareback. It feels
That's
much
why a
better.
lot of women go to dressage.
Yeah.
Because you have to have excellent balance, and you are perched up there.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand what's going on, you're riding the horse, as opposed to riding the horse's feet.
Yeah.
You connect yourself to your horse's feet. You put your foot there first, and the horse is going to move there, and you have a connection with them. Where if you're just riding the body and you don't know what the feet are doing or where they're going, it just makes it more dangerous. you know.
But if you start to ride to the feet in a Western saddle and you get it into your head, you're more going to be able to know that a spook could be coming.
Right.
Because again, it starts in the feet. It doesn't start in the mouth.
It doesn't
and
start
in
on the
English
back, it
saddle,
starts on the feet.
You're trained to ride to the mouth, ride to the bit. The only foot that matters is what diagonal you're on or what lead you're on.
Right.
But this is riding really from the ground up, where the feet are reaching. Everything you do. My horses can spin, they can spook, and they don't really do it anymore. But I can feel it before I'm launched into
Right.
the
It doesn't happen
into
all
the
of a
stream.
sudden.
It
Something
doesn't.
hap-
It doesn't happen all of a sudden. It starts. A spook starts in the feet.
One of Ray's comments that I'll remember always is, what happened just before what you wanted to have happen happened?
Right.
Right. That's Ray Hunt?
Yeah.
Ray Hunt, yeah.
Beforehand. I mean, you should feel it coming, you should know, because you should be the one directing the horse's feet.
But if you're riding to the bit in the mouth with the reins, you've totally missed it. You've missed 90% of the horse.
Right. If we could put the pyramid up, we started out the shows with the outline, and it was kind of busy to look at and hard to understand. And I'm using the pyramid now because many people who are learning and go to classes are used to working with pyramid. And the third one up is the 4 herd rules, and that's what applies to safety at the mounting block. If you do your groundwork and your circle work, and you establish that relationship where you're with your horse, where he's acknowledging your presence, he's respecting you, he'll move when you say move, which also means wait and look to you for direction. One of the things that will happen at the mounting block is not only will a horse shift its hind quarter away from you when you got them all up there, you're ready to go, you climb up on the mounting block and he moves away.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He moves away. Another thing that will happen is a horse will come up on the mounting block and he'll push into you and knock you off the mounting block. He only takes a few inches, but he's a big animal. And the other thing I see is people chasing their horse around with the mounting block. The horse walks ahead, they get off the
They
mounting
move
block,
them
they
up.
put
You
the
move the
mounting
block, yeah.
they go up to the horse, they try again. And what happened in Lois's story, which is a real big no-no, she put the horse up against a wall. A wall.
Oh.
The horse and then the mounting block. And people do that from the human perspective. We do that so the horse can't shift his hind quarter away.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, what is one of the fears, natural fear?
Being confined.
Confined.
Yes.
And it was like a shoot,
Yeah.
like a rodeo
Yeah,
shoot.
he just went straight off. Exactly. He didn't move his hind quarter over. He went full speed ahead. You know, and those are little things that folks who get introduced to horses and where do you go? You go to your local boarding and training stable. You take riding lessons. There are a lot of little things and ways that people do things with horses. I'm not saying they are wrong. What I am saying is from an authentic horsemanship perspective, this is what it looks like to me. I could see that accident coming before
Right.
it happened.
I have a friend who's 75, and she has a 15-3 Arab, and she does that all the time. And every time I'm in the ring near her, I can't look
Oh, no.
because I know and the mounting block is right next to the door. Somebody just has to come in. The horse does this, and
Yeah.
she's going to be
And not to
on
mention
the wall.
it's an Arabian, you know.
And it's
But-
more apt to get nervous if it hears a sharp sound or it smells. It's more apt to because it's confined.
confined. And
You know,
so-
again, thinking about understanding how a horse thinks, but you know, I met Sally for the first time and Eileen, but I didn't hear. What kind of horse do you have?
I have a quarter, well, actually, I should call him a grade. Excuse me. He is, when we got him, there were no papers. But the horse that I do most of my riding is a lesson horse, who is a warm blood. And he's 16-3.
Oh wow!
But I tell you, he's the most gentle soul. His name is Sammy. Most gentle soul you want to meet. And he has helped me get over some of those, like I say, having that horse that's been trained to stand for me. Because I do have my issues.
Right.
I
We all
have
do.
to have, and to have that training and spend the time
Right.
making sure we're safe and the horse is ready.
That's right.
It's priceless.
And it's not just the training of the horse, it's the maintaining
Right.
of that training, so that during that mounting, that little period of time when you're mounting, you can direct the horse so that if something starts, because it doesn't happen all of a sudden, and you can fix that up. And that's why I try to teach people that. If we could put the video clip up. This is something Lois and I threw together 2 days ago, just to.
But it's excellent.
Oh, well, if you do say so yourself, Lois, yeah.
You can talk about these
What
things
else
all
would
you
it be
want.
but excellent? Okay.
Short documentary.
All right, go ahead, Margaret. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you can talk about them. Here we go. This is how you do it. Go up to the mounting block. You get on the mounting block. Bring your horse to you. Settle your horse. Take a controlling rein and take a handful of mane. Put your foot in the stirrup and face your toe forward so you're close to your horse. Put your hand over, lean over, get your foot in the stirrup, get
Here's
it
the
settled. Your
important
horse
part.
should wait no matter what you do. Your horse
Exactly.
should stand there and wait. And she knows when I'm ready, I'll pick up a soft heel, rock her weight back, put her front end over, and walk off. Now, there's a lot of steps that went pretty
Yes.
quickly. Well, I was going to try to do it slow motion, but I said, well, we got a few minutes, we'll just try to do this. Those are some of the tips that I talked about. If you walk your horse up to the mounting block, if you've done your groundwork and you have control of all 4 quarters of your horse, okay? And if you have control of all 4 quarters of your horse, you can do what we call send them by. You can walk your horse this way, raise your hand, have him disengage, walk him back that way, have him disengage, and bring him up to the mounting block if you want. So that's one of the things that you want to cover, is to be able to do that. Once your horse is to the mounting block and not in your way or crowding the mounting block or right where you need him to be, get on the mounting block yourself first. Bring your horse to the mounting block where he needs to be for you to mount safely.
So
Okay?
right from the first step you're standing on.
Right. I see, but what people do is they walk up to the mounting block, they walk past the mounting block, they get in front of their horse and try to get them right over where they want, and then they walk around and get up on the mounting block. From an authentic horsemanship perspective, that's kind of backwards. Your horse will understand what you need better if you get up on the mounting block and bring him up to where you need him to be. And you're in a perfect place. You can see where his feet are. You can feel if he's too close or wherever he needs to be. The next thing you do is settle him. Your hand is up in the air, and that says bring life to your feet and move when he's where you want him to be. You settle him. Get him square. A lot of people don't bother looking at their horse's feet before they mount. Well, if he's not balanced on all 4 feet, on a young horse, when you're starting young horses for the first time, you take a hold of the saddle horn and you move it back and forth and get them to settle down and get ready to accept your weight.
And don't get on. Margaret's taught you, don't get on until he's settled.
Right.
Don't try to just wing it and throw the leg over.
Yeah. The horse has to stay. and then you see what I did with the rein. After we talk a little bit, I'll put the clip up again so you can see. You take a controlling rein, which is a rein on the left side with a handful of mane. And a controlling rein is a rein that you can get contact in the mouth, pressure in the mouth, within a couple of inches. So you don't want to, many people will try to do that and they'll draw the rein up so tight, the horse's head turns to the left, the hind quarter goes to the right. And they keep going back.
Right. Back and forth.
Yeah.
Controlling rein, you don't have any pressure in the horse's mouth, but you're able to get a little pressure in the mouth within a few inches. So you take that controlling rein and you put your hand on the horse's neck, on the mane, to let him know,
And not the
here
side.
I am, buddy, help me out. That's a
Right.
signal to the horse that you're ready to mount. And that's where the winging it, I know he's good, so I'll just get on and go.
Yeah,
no.
I'll do it quick so she doesn't see
If you
me.
follow the procedure, you'll be safe. If you try to rush it, it's not going to work.
Well, just an anecdotal thing. It just brought to mind in my younger years, in my mid to late 30s, I had that cob horse, about 14 two hands, and he used to walk off all the time. I would mount from the ground, and he would start walking off. So before I knew any of Margaret's methods or anything, I said to myself, I'm on him, and he's walking off, and I'm in one stirrup. So I take both reins, and I'm trying to stop him. He gets afraid, and he starts running. And we're in the ring, thank God. He starts running. I'm saying to myself, what do I do now?
Worse, yeah.
What do I do now? Do I flip my leg over and go with it, or do I bail? Well, bailing is not the way. But anyway, I bailed out. I bailed out on the ring, and in those days I could fall on the ground and be all right. But I mean, that was...
Well, there again, that's where if you take a little bit of time and learn how to mount a horse correctly and what goes into it, then you know where you are every step of the way, where the horse's feet are supposed to be every step of the way. The next thing you do, and the reason Lois likes these stirrups and I do, they're about 4 inches wide. So you can get a good portion of your foot in the stirrup without poking your horse's belly with your toe. And then you turn, this is another thing people don't know, they put their foot in the stirrup straight and get up. No, once you get your foot in the stirrup, if you notice, we'll show the video again, you rotate your foot, your toe to point forward.
So that you've got that contact.
I noticed
that. Your leg
that brings this part of your leg up
fender.
against the horse, and you can feel what that horse is going to do. This way, if you put like this, if that horse moves, you're going to go up over backwards.
You know, these little things you never thought of.
Right.
Now,
But they're actually huge things.
They are.
They're
They
huge.
are.
Small steps, but they're huge impact.
Right. The next thing you do is you reach with your free hand, you reach over top of your horse, whichever is easiest for you. In a green horse, you want to reach towards the swell in the front of the saddle, so most of your body is right up in his center of balance. You can reach over top of the horse and grab the cantle of the saddle. Then you squat, and as you squat, you take a breath in. And then as you go up, you blow out. I learned this from vaulting with horses. To get your weight up and become lighter, if you take a breath in as you squat down and breathe out as you come up, it's a lot easier than just trying to
pull yourself over.
Right.
I'm told that we are at our 15-minute mark, which is a very long time for a show. You know, we have a lot of time, but I always like to tell Margaret when we're at 15 so that we can get everything in. But that's interesting about taking the breath in. Yeah, I see myself go.
Right, you're groaning, but if you
and of course my foot is straight instead of this way.
Yeah, you're poking them.
I'm poking him.
You're giving him the signal. Keep moving.
Of course, I have a horse who says I can put up with two, but you know,
well,
but still,
this
this
is
is
you. Exactly. Well, we can do. Is it possible to show that video clip one more time?
I think
just
that
so
would be
people
good
see
in
the
light
steps?
of what you, in light of what Margaret mentioned.
Yeah, here we go.
Let's see it again. Yes.
Bring the horse to you.
Look at
settle it. Take a controlling rein and a handful of mane.
And she stopped her feet there, so she's
see, my toe is forward.
Forward.
See? Hand over the saddle, and it looks real easy. And it's easy if you breathe when you do that. And then the horse should wait. Your signal for that horse, you pick up a soft feel, and that's saying hello, and the horse says what? If you don't want to go, you don't ask for anything more. If you want something more, then you go ahead. I love to rock a horse back on its haunch and move its front foot over in the very beginning just to see if he's responsive to me and he's willing to give over to me.
Now, Margaret, when you rocked him back, okay, we got to get that right, okay. When you rocked her back, did you come off the saddle a little, or did you lean back?
No, when I ask a horse to back, I pick up a soft feel, and when the horse gives me the soft feel, I just put a little bit of weight in my stirrup to come up off his back, because a horse to back up has got to bring his back up a little bit.
So you give him a little
just
room.
a touch.
Yeah, no leg,
and
it's just slight.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we have time, I have one question that's actually relevant to this, and it's how do you get your horse to stand still to mount? So I'll explain that if you're in a situation where you're mounting from the ground, as in your story, what your horse used to do. If you do everything, you get your horse in position, you take your controlling rein and your handful of mane, you get your foot in the stirrup. If your horse begins to walk away, you simply take your foot out of the stirrup and send him by you and around you in circles.
Ah.
Okay, and there's a method to this. It's not just, oh, you're going to go over. It's not that at all. You send your horse forward. If you are ready for this, you'll have enough rein to send him out a few feet, and you even get him to trot. Okay, you drive him forward when he starts to. You're not going to keep driving him forward. You just drive him forward. When he thinks he's going to stop, you drive him forward again. You do that 3 times. Okay. After the 3rd time, you ask him to stop. You disengage his hindquarter and ask him to stop, and you go ahead and you try to mount again. I've done this 8 times with a horse, and I've done it once with a horse. Every horse is different. But basically what you're doing is you're reestablishing, I move your feet, you don't move mine, you acknowledge me, respect me, you move when I say move, and I didn't ask you to. And what it is, that exercise is going back to the basic characteristics of the horse, which is laziness. So you have the horse work a little bit. When the horse says, well, you drive him forward, which reestablishes you move his feet, he doesn't move yours. And that's the way you get a horse to stand still for you when you're mounting from the ground. On the mounting block, you basically do the same thing, but you step off. You have to step off from the mounting block. I was pretty good up until about 10 years ago, being able to work the horse from the mounting block to get him to stand.
Oh,
now I
do
just
it
don't.
from
I
where
don't have
you
the
are.
balance I used to.
On the first step.
Yeah.
From the first step, yeah.
Now, one of the good things about Margaret's workshops is that, for example, when Cynthia was there one day and Annie was just being a real pill about standing at the mounting block, she was just trying to sneak away and say, I'll just mount from the ground. And I said, no, get Margaret over and work it through.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it took, 10, maybe 15 minutes
Right.
of repeating the same thing. But for me, since it was my horse, I want her to be really safe.
Yeah.
And Annie had to learn. And everybody who was either auditing or participating stopped and watched it being done.
Yeah.
And Margaret does a great job in all of the workshops to really show people what needs to happen.
Yeah, and Lois, that I'm trying to imagine if my foot was going into the stirrup and I'm like that from the ground and the horse starts moving,
Just
take it right out.
Yeah, and your hand is right there, and you just allow the slack to come out of your hand and drive your horse forward.
Okay.
You can do it in one smooth movement once you take the time to learn it. And things like that, these lessons take, it takes you half an hour to do that one little thing, but then you've got what I say to people, I give you tools to put in your toolbox.
Well,
And you can't do it out of anger and
No, you
frustration
can't
when you're
do that.
teaching a
It's
bad
not allowed,
lesson.
yeah.
it would never occur to me, and I don't know about Sally either, or any of you in the beginning, that to stop, instead of trying to stop the horse, I would be going, no, take the foot out and let him go.
You turn it into your idea. When he
My-
moves his feet, say, I like that, let's move a little more.
Yeah, I
know?
see what you're saying. Yep.
My biggest thing with Laddie is the second you even think of touching the rein to hold him, he says, okay, I'm ready to go. So I have to take a little bit of the mane and be very careful not to touch the rein at all. And once I get up and I just sit there for a while and okay, I think we'll go now. And I pick up the rein and he says, okay, we can go. Yes.
Yeah.
But he's so sensitive. And this is with either the bitless or the hackamore. It's like amazing how much sensitivity.
I rode a horse in a hackamore, a small horse, and he was very sensitive to it. It was easy to ride him with that. But we're at our 10-minute mark now, but we still have time. So
Right. Well, let's hear a little bit more about Sally and how she got involved in horses.
Well, I think if my mom had something to say about it, she would have said it started at 3.
At 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
With that rocking horse.
Yep.
That rocking horse named Trigger. But the real series, it's always, I sometimes wonder if it's in our DNA.
It is.
Because I feel that there's people who have the connection and people that don't. But after high school, I started to ride, and I continued to ride, and I took some time off to raise your children and such, and you take the time after your children have grown to actually give some time to yourself. And as a woman who had done everything I was supposed to do, it was time, okay, what's in it for me now? So I started to ride, and the therapy psychologically, physically was wonderful. I got laid off from work at 60, and I decided, okay, what do I do now? I was a plumbing designer, and I was approached by Stephanie Sanders of Connecticut Horse and asked me if my horse club was interested in having us, them as a partner in the magazine. And I said, great. And she said, by the way, do you ride? I said, I ride. Do you write? She said. I said, I've never tried. So she said, how about giving me something? And I did. And I presented on a charitable type of event that I went to. It was called Horse Tales for Literacy. And I wrote about it, and she published it. And I am enthralled by, I love.
Oh, that's great. So you have work with the horses too. You
I
have the
work, write, and every moment
how much
I learn
fun.
so much. And I've been so blessed by Connecticut Horse to have the opportunities to go to backyard barns, and some of the barns that blow you away that you could probably have dinner off the floor in the stall.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I've enjoyed it.
It's
quite a bit.
amazing how many horse places are out there once you start looking for them.
Oh, absolutely. They're
Yeah.
lovely.
5 minutes.
We have 5 minutes.
Yes, Lois, my side is
If
my
we can
side.
put, we can put the if we
Good
can
for
put the
you, Lois.
contact information up on the screen. What we're telling people is that you can either you can email me or you can text me questions. If I don't know if
Yeah,
in the
we'll
studio
get that
they
up
say
on the
that, yeah.
screen.
But
yeah.
also just tell people where your ranch is, and I would highly encourage, like Kathy did, to just come up and watch a workshop.
Yeah, here it is. Here we
get
are here.
involved.
Oh, yeah,
my
watch the
my
workshops,
email,
right.
my email, and my phone number are there. Either email or text me any of your questions, and we'll try to cover them on the show if we have time. I like to try to get everybody. People ask different questions. I like to try to, like this question, related to what the topic of the show
and
is.
we don't forget, you can, if you get confused, go to Facebook, Margaret Beeman, professional. She'll come up and you'll get her information there too.
Yeah,
And you'll see the schedule. Do you have the schedule pointed?
The
for
schedule
when
is
your
on my
workshops-
website, posted for. I've got classes starting in March at the ranch and down here in Oxford. We're doing some round pen basics classes
it.
for people. And then my workshops start up at the ranch in April. And then I have different organizations that I go to that I try to keep ahead with the schedule. I'm doing Mid-Hudson Driving Association is asking me to work with them because I not only work with riders, I work with drivers also.
Well, it's wonderful. I attended one of Margaret's workshops, several of them now, and as a auditor and as someone who watched closely what she did, and I found it fascinating, Margaret. I mean, this is why you're on the show, and this is why I've dedicated my show to true horsemanship.
Yeah.
I think everybody should know this and understand that this is the way to go.
Well, I do it and I dedicate my work to the horse.
That's right. It's about the horse. And
And I'm going to,
yes.
as your sidekick, I'm
yes,
also
you
gonna
are my
say
sidekick. I love you.
That the entirety of horsemanship training is so useful as a leadership training tool, particularly for young women.
Yes.
And one of the biggest obstacles I think young women have to really start to deal with is you don't blame the horse.
Absolutely. It's never the
You
horse,
never
it's you.
blame the horse.
Yeah, it's because it's based on mutual respect. You need to respect the horse, yet you still have to gain control of the horse.
That's
And you
right.
really can't gain control of the horse humanely or safely unless you take the time to get to know them.
Well, that's right.
And understand the horse facts, which are at the first level on the pyramid.
That's right.
I'm going to tell my producers back there that we're going to be signing off very soon. I want to thank Margaret Beeman, professional horsewoman, and we are all affectionately known when we have guests as the Boomer
Boomer
Cowgirls.
Cowgirls.
The Boomer Cowgirls. And so, Margaret, I'm looking forward to our next show. Remember, everyone, it's weekly, and I'm going to thank everybody here for being here, and I'm going to turn to my audience and tell them I would love to say goodbye to all of you. Have a good evening and a better tomorrow, and don't forget the Boomer Cowgirls, Margaret Beeman, professional horsewoman. This is a fun show for me to do. I can't wait to have our next show. We're on weekly now, Monday nights, 7:30 on Monday nights on Public Access, Facebook, and you can get us on YouTube also. Town Talk. Take care, everyone. Happy pony trails.
Thank you.